Good evening, Westbury family. Today is a special meeting in which we will have a budget presentation presented by the superintendent and the assistant superintendent of business, as well as some of our other cabinet members. This is not an actual board meeting, so there's no requirement of a quorum. Just a bit of housekeeping. I just want to let you know that this is an opportunity for you to listen to the budget presentation. If you have any questions whatsoever, you can do it live stream. But if you review this budget presentation in your leisure, you are able to present questions at budget via email at budget@westburyschools.org, and also frequently check the website for budget detail information. The board will be actually voting on the budget on April 8th, the evening of April 8th, and then there will be a budget hearing on May 6th. And then the actual budget will be on voting for the budget as well as seats for the board on May 20th. I just want to say that many of our board members are absent due to other commitments, but we have presented what we believe is a responsible budget. We have been responsible for many years, and the community have been in support of the budget. We just ask that you continue your support of the schools in whatever way you seem necessary. We have taken this budget in consideration, and we are very proud of the budget we're presenting thus far. And we are currently looking at another zero increase in the budget for this year, which is, we've done that for the past, I believe, four years? Past 4 years? For past 3 years, I'm sorry. And we do this because we have the interests of our community, all of our community at heart. A zero increase in the budget means we are still, that the taxpayers, or at least from the school district aspect will not receive a significant increase in their taxes. However, we did not take anything from programs. We didn't take anything away from the students. We are very, very proud of what we are presenting here today. Without any further ado, I'm going to pass it over to our esteemed Superintendent of Schools, Dr. Tahira Dupree Chase, for the budget presentation. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice President Ewing. Good evening, community. Good evening to those who are sitting here in the audience, as well as those who are watching via streaming. I am going to ask our assistant superintendents to join me as we present the proposed 2025-2026 budget. But before we get started, for those who are in the audience, please know that there are handouts on the table so that you can follow along with the PowerPoint that's behind me. Please feel free to grab a handout so that you can follow along. And as you are doing that, we'll just go over to the microphone, everyone. And our assistant to the assistant superintendent, Mr. Rob Stein, will also join us. We're on. Okay. All righty. So the microphone is on. Thank you. Once again, we are presenting this evening the 2025-2026 proposed budget. And one of the things that we are focused on in our school district is presenting a budget with a purpose. So it's not that we're presenting numbers. What we also like to present to you is how are we planning to spend the money how are we planning to allocate the money, and you will learn that throughout the presentation this evening. We'd like to just bring your attention to our focus on global citizenry. Well, we'll talk more about what does global citizenry mean as we move throughout the budget. But before we start anything, we'd like to take this moment to thank you, our community, to thank our taxpayers, our residents, for believing in us and trusting us in the 2024-2025 school year. Because of your favorable vote, we were able to initiate international student travel this year. Because of your support, our scholars in 2 weeks will be traveling to Brazil and Peru as part of their curriculum. We're super excited about these international opportunities, and again, keeping in mind global citizenry. We're also super excited about the start of our IB program, our International Baccalaureate. We talked about it in the previous school year, and this year we have initiated such a program. We anticipate in the 2026 year that we will be graduating our first cohort of IB DP learners. DP is an acronym for Diploma Program. Also, community, because of your support and your vote in the affirmation, we were able to initiate a Chromebook refresh program. We've also added middle school robotics team to our growing robotics, and our scholars participated in robotics competition in the past 2 weeks. We reimagined summer school. We transform summer school, as many of you have known it, where we provide different types of opportunities for our scholars and expand their learning through our summer program. We've added Active Zone, which gives scholars an opportunity to engage in different types of sports. We've also made sure that we added a STEM focus as well. We've expanded our Strive program. That's our program for our unique learners here at Westbury School District. We've also expanded our PLC into year 2. We are on our way of becoming a model PLC school district. We initiated a new ELA curriculum at our middle school. We added new sports program. We have a tennis team, boys tennis. We're super excited about that. The Content Creation Lab will be opening in the coming weeks. That is what many people would refer to as a TV studio, but in today's world where our scholars will be engaged in podcasting and the like, we have a Content Creation Lab where we will also be leveraging social media. Safety and Security Enhancements community, this is our work together. We initiated Strategic Safety Program, which is a platform to empower our educators as well as all staff members here at the Westbury School District and putting the power of safety and security in their hands. We also initiated the door ajar system, the blue light system, security operation, which is, many of you know it as SOC, and the Drexel bus loop. We thank you, community. We thank you for believing in us, and we thank you for trusting us. And because of your support, we were able to initiate some of those items that I discussed. So I'm gonna ask my cabinet if they would wish to elaborate on any of those things before we move on to the next slide. Can we please go back? Thank you. All right, I guess we covered that very, very well. We're going to move on to the budget process. And the budget process is simply a calendar that our Board of Education approved in the fall. Now, while this budget process begins in November, let me be clear, community. The budget process for the next year began the day after last year's vote. We began talking about what the next year's budget should look like. But we're just going to give you the process from the fall, which is November. And in November, we extended training on how to enter budget into financial software for our administrators and also for some of our clerical staff. We started budget meetings with individual administrators to get an idea of what it is that they were looking for in the upcoming budget. And in December, the budget meetings continued. The assistant superintendents who are on my left met with administrators, met with support staff to ask about their needs and desires for the budget. And in January, the governor released her budget. Budget meetings continued. Budget meetings also were informed by the governor's release of her budget. And in February, budget meetings continued. Those meetings were thoughtful, considerate of what it is that our scholars need, what it is that our educators will need in order to do their job most effectively. March, the tax levy limit calculation was due. We gave you all, community, our first public presentation, March 18th. Some of you who are here now were there for that meeting as well. And here we are in April 1st. We're now giving you our second budget presentation after meeting with the Board of Education on the 18th of March. We anticipate that our Board of Education will adopt the budget on April 8th. Please come out to that meeting as well. We also anticipate May 6th will be our budget hearing, and of course, May 20th is the budget vote. Do I need to add anything? You want to do the budget highlights, or do you like the way I'm going? I told you, I've been presenting all day. So some budget highlights. Tax freeze for the third consecutive year. You heard our Vice President, Mr. Ewing, boast about Westbury's desire to freeze the tax so that we do not, I don't want to use the word burden, so that taxpayers do not have to be concerned with their taxes being increased, school taxes that is, to address the school's needs. We were able to freeze for the third consecutive year. And we're super excited that because of the ambition and the hard work and diligence of our Assistant Superintendent for Business and Finance and her team, that even though we have freezed our taxes, all programs for the 2024, all programs from this school year will be maintained in the next school year. And in fact, we're going to even expand some of our programs, and we'll talk about that a little bit later on in the presentation. Our staff levels will be maintained, except, of course, for those retirees who need not to be replaced. There will be, and I did say that earlier, a moderate expansion, and we're going to continue those investments in facilities, and of course, Mr. Rob Stein will speak candidly about that later in the presentation. Okay. Ms. O'Neill will give us the executive summary and the financial plan overview.
Thank you, Dr. Chase. So our overall budget is increasing by 1.22%. The proposed budget is $201,341,468, a 1.22% over this year. As you'll see, the school tax levy is at a 0% increase. And our state and federal aid, while it is showing a decline, but we'll discuss that a little bit later, that is really due to a reduction in transportation aid and BOCES aid. We have increased our appropriated reserves, as well as increased all other revenues. The tax levy, as you can see, has been frozen now, or at the same level for 3 years. We've actually lowered the tax levy by 5.3% over the last 6 years, and that's due to the increase in foundation aid that you've received. And the board was committed to giving back to the community, and they did that by lowering the actual tax levy for the voters. So the challenges that we face uncertainty with our state and our federal aid. So summary of our expenses, as you can see, the bottom line is $201,341,468. But the majority of our expenses are in salary and benefits, which is, here, we'll go to a picture instead. Where'd it go? Okay. So our salary and benefits make up 66% of your budget, while supplies, materials, and equipment are a small amount of 1.8%. Our contractual transportation is 5.98% of the budget, but you'll see we are decreasing our overall contractual transportation, and that's due to consolidation of minibuses. We have a decrease in tuition. Our tuition overall is 4.1% of the budget, but we do have an overall decrease in tuition costs, and that's due to the STRIVE program and the returning of students that Dr. Chase mentioned. We have our debt and interfund transfers, which is 2.78% of the budget, and that we are showing just under a $2 million decrease. We have our contractual services increasing 14%, but it's still 7%. It makes up 7% of our budget. BOCE services increase $782,000 and represents just over 12% of the budget. Oh, it's not working. Okay. Okay. So now we have our state and federal aid. We've had a decline of 2.4% in the 25-26 school year due to reduction in the transportation and BOCES aid, as mentioned. Overall, the district has an increase of 74% of state aid over the last 6 years. You'll notice that the federal aid fluctuates quite a bit, and that's really due to the COVID funding that the district had received, and now that that's gone away. Our overall increase in the budget is lower than the rate of inflation. Our budget to increase is 1.2% this year, and the inflation rate as it stands right now, the CPI, is 2.8 as of February. Last year, our budget increase was 1.13%, and the final CPI from New York State Education Department was 3.9%. We still maintain a strong financial position. You'll see an increase in reserves and fund balance of 7.69% from the 2021 school year to the 24-25 school years. We have a Moody's credit rating of AA2. I looked today, the New York State Office of the State Comptroller offers fiscal stress monitoring, and we have no designation, which is great. You do see a decline in the 22-23 year, and that was due to the voters approving the use of the capital reserve, which has since been funded over the last 2 years. And we'll turn it over to Mr. Stein for the continued investment in facilities.
Thank you, Ms. O'Neill. So the district continues to invest in its facilities through the portion of the budget called our planned project budget. Now, this budget we've had for the last 3 years. So in 23-24, you may remember that we did a pool resurfacing here at the high school. We did the stage lighting here in this auditorium, and we installed PA systems and blue lights in all the elementary buildings. In the year 24-25, we installed a new playground at Powell's. We removed 3 underground storage tanks at 3 of the elementary schools, and we did numerous bathroom renovations. We increased the expansion of the parking lot at Drexel, and we've done the 3rd floor ceiling replacement at the middle school. And we're starting work on a loading dock repair at Powell's. Now for the 25-26 school year, we're looking at the following projects which are still developing. At the high school, we're looking at a band room renovation and a septic system repair. At the middle school, we're looking at bathroom renovations and upgrades to the home ec and tech room. At Drexel, we're looking to do floor and ceiling replacements and gym wall pad repairs. At Dryden, we're looking to do gym mats, bathroom renovations, and an underground fuel tank removal. At Park Avenue, it's exciting because we have an installation of a new playground, bathroom renovations, and again, an underground tank removal. At Powell's Lane, we have classroom sink replacement, an underground tank removal, and floor and ceiling replacements, totaling $1.445 million.
So we did talk about the expansion of our current academic programs. I mentioned that earlier when I introduced this 0% increase. There was absolutely no energy from this audience for that. I'm expecting more from you, Mr. McGibbons. But anywho, a expansion of the, he act like he doesn't hear me, he hears me. The expansion of academic programs, we do anticipate expanding our socially emotional learning in our school district. We found that to be extremely helpful to our scholars, and not just our scholars, but also our staff and our faculty. We do not want to decrease that. We are finding that because it is most effective that we wish to expand. Our Saturday Wins Academy, which is our signature program where we offer schools 6 days a week where we expand the learning of our scholars beyond Monday through Friday. It is a very unique, robust opportunity for our scholars to engage in STEM, performing and fine arts, and basically what I need on a Saturday. And we look to increase that by $145,000. Summer school, I want to credit Ms. Robin Barnett and Mr. Brendan Gallivan for creating a wonderful summer active zone program, a summer program that definitely meets the needs of our scholars, a very thoughtful summer program, and Ms. Barnett can speak a little bit more about that shortly. And of course, exposing our scholars to increase out-of-district experiences. Now, what in the world does that mean? Does that mean I'm sending them out to other schools to learn? Well, I'm sending them out into the world to learn, where the world will become their classroom. That is extended travel, that is more trips, more experiential learning. So I want to be clear about out-of-district experiences simply means experiential learning. We talked about budget with a purpose. This is what we plan to do in the 2025-2026 school year. Ms. Barnett, do I need to expand on anything, or?
Thank you, Dr. Chase. So one thing that is not listed on this slide, but is an expansion of our academic programs, is that we are expanding the number of STRIVE sections. What STRIVE is for our most unique learners in our school district, students with IEPs. And while it's not listed on this slide, that is strategic because in returning 2 additional cohorts of STRIVE students to our district, we're actually going to see a cost savings. So it's both an expansion of an academic program, but also a cost savings as bringing those scholars back to our school district where they belong with their age peers in their own community. We're able to offset the cost of tuition for those students to attend BOCES and other public school placements.
Thank you. So some of the major savings, it always happens. Some of the savings that we've had in the district that are also on the next page are savings from retirements and resignations of $994,000. The retirements are savings from staff that either we don't have to replace or that we are replacing at a lower salary, and the same with resignations. We have staff that are allocated to grants that are saving us approximately $400,000, as well as consolidating our bus routes, which I mentioned that earlier. And then we have removed the interfund transfer to capital of $1.8 million. So our overall changes from the current year budget. We've had some increases. Clearly, our salary and benefits increase every year based on our contractual obligations of $4.7 million. We've had a reduction in our debt and interfund transfers of $195,774,000, and that's just the debt service schedule that we have and the payment of that. We have an increase in special ed contractual of $1.1 million, and a lot of that is different contracts for OT-PT that we have outsourced, as well as some funding for staffing if we can't staff in-house. We have an increase in BOCES services of $139,000, as well as an increase in BOCES services for technology of $320,000. We do have some miscellaneous adjustments throughout the budget of just under $50,000. As mentioned, we have enhanced instructional programs. Dr. Chase spoke about the Saturdays Wins program, the summer school program for $176,000, the STRIVE program. While it's a new program and we're adding staff, it's still saving us money because we're reducing the out-of-district expense for tuition. We have increased funding for Syntegics of $89,000, and that is these little badges here that we've been talking about that everybody now can, if you push a button, help will come if you need it. We have increased funding for professional development of $104,000, as well as social and emotional learning of $50,000. We have increased funding for student field trips, academic field trips of $142,000, and in that is a 5th grade trip for all of our 5th grade students. And Ms. Barnett, you want to speak a little bit about a possible 5th grade trip for next year?
Super excited. Thank you. So as Ms. O'Neill and Dr. Chase shared, we had previously had money in the budget for international travel for our secondary scholars. And one of the things we recognize is that all of our scholars deserve opportunities to explore and engage in the world in unique and interesting ways that enrich their academics. So in this coming budget, Ms. O'Neill has built in funding for us to take the entire 5th grade for a full day trip out of our local community, and we're looking right now into exploring DC and the historical Philly, exploring the historical locations in Philadelphia with our 5th grade scholars and tying that into their core curriculum, what they're doing in their social studies and ELA classrooms. So we're very excited about that. Our building principals are chomping at the bit to go ahead and get started with the planning for next year, and we look forward to welcoming all of our 5th graders to participate in this wonderful opportunity.
Thank you, Ms. Barnett. And as mentioned before, we do have some savings from retirements and resignations of just under $1 million. We have allocated staff to grants of $400,000 and consolidated the minibus routes for savings of $763,000, as well as removing the interfund transfer. That brings us to our proposed budget of $201,341,468.
Okay, so as Dr. Chase stated at the beginning of the presentation, we are grounding our budget in the notion of global citizenry. And why is that important? So what you see here on the screen is the Sustainable Development Goals set forth by the UN in relation to how we want to grow our youth into active community members and agents of change on the global level. So we are looking to promote inclusivity and diversity, prepare our students for a globalized world, empower social responsibility, foster critical thinking, build stronger communities, and enhance empathy and understanding through each and every one of those items identified in the budget. We are approaching our budget through this lens at all times. So what is global citizenry? A global citizen is someone who's aware of the world and takes interest in global issues. They're someone who understands the interconnectedness of our community and how their actions impact the world. These are qualities that we wish to inspire in all of our learners, from our littlest learners down in pre-K and kindergarten all the way up through our high school seniors who are graduating and entering the world in unique ways. And it's important to note that global citizenry is not a mindset. It is a way of being. It is more than just a designation or a title or a theme for a budget. It is what we hope to inspire in our scholars so that they can become active agents of change in our global community, moving us towards greatness as a planet Earth.
So what does it take? It's going to take all of us continuing to work together, but it's also going to take innovation. It's going to take project-based learning, and it's going to take well-trained faculty and staff. So I am going to pass the baton back over to Ms. Robin Barnett, who's going to talk about some student achievement. And the student achievement is based on this current year's budget through your support. So we want to show you how you also helped to cultivate student achievement.
Okay, so what you see here is our student achievement data looking at when we first implemented our new core literacy program and the K-5 grade bands back in the 22-23 school year up through current. So what you're going to look at in the first columns are going to be proficiency rates in February of 2023 as compared to this past February. So in the 2 years of our implementation, 2.5 years, we've seen dramatic changes in both proficiency rate and emergency rate. The important thing to note here is that when we look at the proficiency rates on the left side of the screen, we're looking to see positive changes. We're looking to see increases in the number of students, in the percentages of students demonstrating proficiency, which means that they're reading at or above grade level. Overall, in grades K through 5, we've seen an increase of 8.2% of students demonstrating proficiency, which means that 8.2 percentage points more of students this year as compared to when we first began our implementation in February of 2023 are reading at or above grade level. This is tremendous. Similarly, on the right-hand side, when we look at emergency rates are those students who are achieving 2 or more years below grade level. So you'll notice that entire column is in green text, and that's intentional because it is a little misleading. All of those numbers are negatives, but that's a good thing. You want to see a decrease in the percentage of students at the emergency level because that means that they're moving into the at-risk and the proficient levels. So overall, for grades K through 5, we've seen a decrease in emergency level scholars by 9.8 percentage points, which is significant. That means that 9.8 percentage points of our students who were previously 2 or more years below grade level no longer are, and they're closing that gap, moving towards proficiency. At the bottom, you will see cohort data. So the top really shows you year to year. We're comparing the cohort of third graders in 2023 to the cohort of third graders this year. At the bottom, we're actually tracking the same group of students across their school years, looking at them in first, second, third, fourth, and then third, fourth, and fifth. So what you'll see is that each cohort of students, each group of students that remained intact over the course of these 2 years have also increased their proficiency rate and decreased their emergency rate. And what's really interesting to look at in particular is our 4th grade scholars. What you might have noticed is on the top left chart, there's only one number in the whole chart that's in red, and that's our 4th grade scholars. In February of 2023, 4th grade scholars, there was 32.9% of them reading at or above grade level. This year, there's only 29.5%. But that doesn't tell the whole story. What tells the whole story is that bottom section, where if you look at our current 4th graders, it shows you that in 2023, our current 4th graders started out at a much lower level than prior years. And if you keep in mind, our current 4th graders were the students who were in their earliest years of learning in the Westbury School District during the COVID shutdown. They were kindergartners when we had gone into shutdown in May of 2020, and then they came back for 1st grade, which is pivotal in your educational experience for building a strong foundation, to hybrid learning. So what we do see is while they may not be right on par, but they're so close to their peers from the grades from the years prior, they are making tremendous growth. They've made more growth than our other cohorts even, having grown 15.6 percentage points from 2nd grade up through 4th grade, and they've decreased the rate of students at the emergency level by 13.6. Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
All right. Now we're going to move on to talk about some other initiatives that we have in the district, and we're looking forward to continuing through the adoption of this next budget. So if you take a look at the chart, we have some exciting initiatives that have been taking place in the district and the display of growth in these initiatives over a several-year period. So for example, the New York State Seal of Biliteracy, if you take a 3-year trend, you can see how much this program is growing. From 40 students who are graduating with the seal, who graduated in June of 2023, to anticipated in June of 2025 as 125. We are only looking to grow that number even more in the next school year. Take the New York State Seal of Civic Readiness. With our first cohort of last year of 154, we're anticipating 255 students to achieve that designation. And you could imagine how many more students we're going to get come next year. Take our International Baccalaureate program, which we are extremely proud that we have the IB World designation. When you look at the cohorts that are going to be graduating in 2026 and 2027, we have 14 students projected to graduate with the IB diploma next year, and then the following year, increasing it to 25. We also have students that have been taking IB courses that are not necessarily going to graduate with the diploma, but they are alongside the cohorts, giving them an opportunity to increase their educational growth. And if you look at the first cohort, we have 41 additional students who are taking IB courses alongside of them, and that number will grow to 100 alongside cohort 2. This budget is reflective of the growth in our international baccalaureate, the IB diploma, and our commitment to fostering high levels of student achievement. What was also talked about earlier, which I've been asked to talk about briefly, is our Professional Learning Communities initiative, which we are extremely proud of. We have launched PLCs district-wide, which are educators working collaboratively in collective inquiry to continually review curriculum and to ensure that it's guaranteed and viable curriculum, to plan goals and set achievement norms, to issuing and implementing common assessments, taking the data from those common assessments and determining which of our students need enrichment, which of our students need extension, or any type of remediation. We then instruct the students that way. We look at the results and we start the process over and over again. This is a 3-year commitment that we have with Solution Tree to achieve Model Schools PLC at Work status. And if we can achieve this by the end of next year, we will be the first school district on Long Island to achieve that designation. Other school districts on Long Island have seen what we've been doing in Westbury and now are jumping on, but we will be the first. We have already seen student achievement gains and also improvement in instructional practice based on the implementation of our professional learning communities. We are a little bit past the halfway point of the 3-year process, and we are really looking forward to next May or next June in the next school year, standing in front of all of you to let you know that we achieved this designation. And it's going to be a huge celebration because the collaboration that has occurred has been tremendous. So we look forward to updating everyone on this, and this budget is reflective of all these increased opportunities. Thank you.
So I do want to take a moment to thank Dr. Bloom and the team of PLT leaders throughout our district, as well as our school building-based leaders for running with the PLTs, running with in the PLC model in their particular building, and all of our PLC leaders. And I know it was something very new that we introduced to the district, and although we had the concept of PLT, but using the Solution Tree model was a different concept, and we ran with it. And again, beginning to see the results. The conversations around curriculum and instruction are different. The conversations around student data looks and sounds different. So I want to thank Dr. Bloom and his team for leading the efforts in PLT. We're also excited to present to you a proposition that may be on the ballot. And so I'm going to ask Mr. Rob Stein if he would just explain this to us, please.
So what we have here is proposition number 2, and this proposition will be for the authorization to appropriate and expend monies from the Capital Reserve Fund for construction, reconstruction, and renovation. It will read as follows. Shall the Board of Education of the Westbury Union Free School District be hereby authorized and directed pursuant to Section 3651 of the New York State Education Law to appropriate funds from the district's Capital Reserve Fund, known as the Facilities Maintenance and Improvement Program 2019, established by the voters on May 21, 2019, in an amount not to exceed roughly $8.3 million, and to expend such funds to finance the construction, reconstruction, renovation, and equipping of school district buildings and other facilities, and to take any and all actions necessary to effectuate the appropriation and expenditure of the expenses as described within.
What this means is that the community would be providing the board authorization to move forward with a future capital project, which could include additions, alterations, renovations to the buildings within the district, and it would be based on the 5-year capital plan.
And so where is this money now?
The money right now, as mentioned, the voters approved the district back in 2019 to fund this reserve up to $2.5 million a year, which you have done, and it sits in a separate checking account, a separate account, and it's held there until the voters say that we can use it.
So you're basically saying the money is there.
The
It's
money,
just waiting
yes.
for the voters to say,
Yes.
go ahead and use it.
So the funds are there, the voters approved us to put funds there, but in order for us to spend it, we need your approval to do so. Okay, so if the budget is defeated, we have two options. We can resubmit the same proposal or a revised proposal for one revote, or we can adopt a contingent budget. If residents vote down the budget a second time, the district must adopt a contingent budget. And what does that mean? Well, first, let's know that the budget we're presenting has a 0% tax levy increase. There's a tax freeze. So if we were to go to a contingent budget, community use of our school facilities, we wouldn't be able to allow that. We'd have to charge all costs to be reimbursed by the district. We wouldn't be able to do new equipment purchases. We couldn't do non-essential maintenance. So the playground that we're looking to do at the elementary building, we would not be able to do. Capital expenditures except in an emergency. So clearly if we have a pipe break, yes, we have to fix that. But other planned projects we would not be able to do. Salary increases for non-instructional, non-unionized employees. That's not the unions. The teachers, they would still get their raises. The facility staff, clerical unit, everybody with a negotiated contract would receive a raise, but the people who do not have a contract would not. Certain field trips and student supplies we wouldn't be able to purchase. Do you want to do next steps? Okay.
So as in previous years, and as I explained last month, should you have any questions, of course, we're going to entertain questions this evening, but when you get home, you might want to look through the presentation again. It will be posted online, and you may have questions. Please do not hesitate to reach us at budget@westburyschools.org. We will start an FAQ sheet where your questions will be public, and the responses will also be public in case someone else has those same questions. So we encourage you to use budget@westburyschools.org. Ms. O'Neill, to date, have we received any questions?
No.
Okay, so if you have them, please use them. Please use this platform. Please continue to check our website for any updates. This presentation, even though there are copies of this in the back, we will also have it online for you all to look at and to examine at your leisure. We're hoping, we will have the budget hearing May 6th. May 6th is the budget hearing. You will continue to receive budget presentations. We want to be able to share this information with as many people as possible. If you're watching at home, you are a homeowners association leader, you're in a community, you're a community leader, please share this information with your neighbors. Send them to our website so that they are informed voters. We want people to know that this is a budget with a purpose. We're not just putting out numbers just to put out numbers, but we're putting out numbers simply to share with you what our plans and wishes are in the next school year as it relates to our scholars, our staff, our faculty, as well as our facilities. Please remember that May 20th is the budget vote. Please exercise your right to vote. Do not miss out on that opportunity. But please make sure that you read the information. You'll receive a newsletter, you'll receive postcards, you'll see the presentation online. It'll be archived. You'll see this over and over. And of course, you know that you can ask any one of us at any time any questions that you may have, okay? May 20th is the budget vote. No, I did not say that. I said you can ask this evening. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. As well as any other time. Okay? So we have our next steps. And again, we just want to thank those who are in the audience and those who are watching for listening to our budget presentation. I hope you understand, again, this is a budget with a purpose for building global citizenry, preparing our scholars for opportunities that don't yet exist. We want our scholars to be in the forefront of this global enterprise. We know our scholars can do it. They prove it over and over and over. And it's through your support that they will continue to thrive in this environment. Again, we thank you so much for listening to our budget presentation, and I'm going to pass it back to our Vice President. Oh, there are questions in the chat that, well, I think before we do that, we're going to pass it on to the Vice President, and he will facilitate questions and answers.
Thank you, Dr. Chase and Cabinet, for going through the budget presentation. At this time, we will make the time available to community members who have any questions regarding tonight's presentation. We ask that you please state your name and address and proceed with your question.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Chester McGibbon, 502 Alicia Drive. Thanks for the presentation, Mr. Vice President. One quick question. How was this advertised? I just learned about this yesterday, and I think we have a school community of, what, 4,000 plus students? Mm-hmm. And I don't know if the advertising or how the word got out is responsible for the sparsity of attendance here this evening, considering that we'll be asking those members of the community to vote in this budget.
I'm so sorry. I did not hear your question. Or did you hear?
How is it advertised?
How's what advertised?
This budget, the reading of the budget presentation.
No, I'm just because of the sparsity of people here this evening.
Yeah, no, I hear you about this, the sparse. You know what? I will be honest with you. This is actually more folk in the audience than we had in the previous year since I've been here. Mr. McGibbons, you were at the meeting in March when we announced this date for the budget presentation, and also to our board clerk, sent this information out as she does with any other board meeting. Ms. Beverly, there were no difference in how this was issued out in terms of a board meeting, correct?
That is correct. It was posted on Friday.
Okay.
On where?
On the district website.
Okay.
On the district website.
All right. Hope a lot of people consult that. Looking at the timeline for how we process this budget, you mentioned that you solicit information from, what is it, members of the public or principals for their wish list, so to speak? Yeah, who makes that determination as to what's granted from what's not granted from that wish list? The board or a committee?
It's actually collaborative. Mm-hmm. So we meet with our building level administrators. They give a wish list. Most of them know that they can't ask for a 14-karat gold pencil sharpener. So they're very realistic in their asks. For the most part, they get what they want. because they know what they need in their buildings. Let me not say want, they get what they need because they do know what they need. And those conversations are brought to cabinet, and from cabinet, those conversations are brought to the board. I will say, and I'm probably revealing secrets that I shouldn't say, I have yet to hear this board say no to a request that comes from a school. And so we do our due diligence in ensuring that what is requested in terms of a need is absolutely verified and it's given to our schools. But we make sure that there's conversation and there's collaboration, there's data brought to the table, there's evidence as to why do you feel like you need this? What's the purpose for this? What's the goal with whatever it is that you may need? And our principals do an exceptional job at presenting their needs, which is typically why they get everything that they, practically everything that they request.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
I do see that I did ask about the fund balance at our last meeting, and I see you have the figure here now of 16 million and plus. Is there a formula that determines the appropriateness of what's a reasonable fund balance to have in a budget in the district?
Mr. McGivens, we go by what's required by the state. And the state requires at least 4% of our budget.
Oh, I see. And when do we use this? I noticed that in most of we use a lot of funds from the construction and reserve. When do we actually dip into this?
Some of our reserves are for retirement benefits as well as medical benefits. So those things have to be set aside so that if there is a shortfall, that we can make those payments.
And just one question about Prop 2, the 18 million.
8 million.
8 million, yes.
8.
You said that money is already here. How, I'm not quite sure. You're asking the public if you can use it, or? Right.
So the money was set aside because, as you recall, we set aside, the public allowed us to set aside $2.5 million every budget for capital improvements. And so once we set it aside, we cannot use it until such time as the public allows us to use it.
Right. So this is not part of the 2 million budget that we're going to be voting on.
Excuse me?
Will this be a part of that upcoming budget that we will be voting on?
No, this is already set aside.
It's already there.
So this is allowing us to use the money that's already in the fund balance, the capital fund reserves, to use it for the projects that we have set aside.
And one final question.
Yes, sir.
Have we had a chance to dissect or analyze what I would characterize as a learning loss that we experienced during the COVID years? Is that reflected here and under student achievement?
Dr. Chase.
Okay. So, Mr. McGivens, just to make sure I understand your question, you're asking how we are responding to the general learning loss
right.
during COVID. Absolutely. So that's a great question. So what you have seen in the past several budgets is that we have been strongly funding literacy and numeracy programs, and we're looking to continue that. So you'll see we implemented our core back in 2022-2023 school year, and that's the data that you saw. So you were able to see how our students have been growing over time, and we're continuing with that implementation. We're also responding this year by implementing HMH into literature for the middle school students in their ELA programming, really solidifying what's called our Tier 1 instructional program, providing robust grade level instruction. We also implemented Eureka Math Squared. All of those programs are continuing. Similarly, as Dr. Bloom mentioned, we are on our PLC journey, and part of that is building into our academic day what's called Dragon Time. It's time where we look at student data, we respond to their needs during the school day to ensure that if they didn't learn what we are guaranteeing, that they have additional opportunities to be taught by a highly qualified teacher until they master it. And if they have mastered it, they have opportunities for enrichment. We also expanded our summer programming as well as our Saturday programming to ensure that each unique student's needs are met.
Oh, thank you. Mr. President, Mr. Vice President, if you'll allow me to digress for just a minute.
What I'm going to What I'm going to ask is, I see that there's someone else behind you. I'm going to ask that person to come up to ask a question, and then you can come back up.
Sure.
Sure.
Good evening. Matthew Darch of 48 Hark Lane, Westbury, New York, 11590. I first want to thank the board, the superintendent, and staff for the wonderful presentation, for breaking it down. It was very effective, so thank you very much. I first wanted to ask, I noticed in the costs that contractual services is the second biggest share of the pie, so to speak. Is there a public list of contractors and how much is being paid to them that we can access?
We don't have a public list per se, but if there's a specific code that you would like me to look at and provide information for, we can do that. I mean, we don't have just a general database of, here's these 10 contractors and this is what we have. It's all, for me, it's by code.
I think it would be very useful for this district to have a general database like that just for us to look through. I think that would be of great benefit. I also wanted to ask, do students in this school district pay for lunch, breakfast?
No.
No? All right, excellent. Good on that free food program. Thank you.
Dr. Chase? Yes, ma'am. Would you like to mention something else?
I would like to mention something else, but I don't know if Mr. McGibbons will give me an opportunity to before he asks his question.
Before we have Mr. McGivens come up and ask his question, we have several questions that are on the chat.
Well, Mr. Ewing, pardon me, I just wanted to respond to this gentleman's question about breakfast and lunch not being paid by our scholars. A few weeks ago, our board president signed off on an opportunity for our scholars to also receive dinner at no charge. I think we're one of the few school districts to offer dinner to our scholars at no charge, and I could not be more proud of the school district for having that opportunity for our kiddos.
Thank you very much for that.
Thank you.
Okay, in the chat, we have a question from Isabella Lomax at 565 Jefferson Street. The first question she has is, what percentages of our scholars attend the Saturday Academy?
Okay, Ms. Barnett has some data.
Absolutely. Thank you, Dr. Chase and Vice President Ewing. So our Saturday Academy currently has slots for 280 scholars to participate this year. How many students participate on a day-to-day basis does vary, but we are able to accommodate up to 280 students, and that are students currently in grades K through 8. I can run some calculations for you and get back to you on the percentage of that, but it is 280 seats, and we're looking always for ways to expand that. In the 280 seats, that's in particular to our STEAM program. We also offer additional seats in the theater program that operates on part of our Saturday Academy, and that theater program really is quite flexible. We welcome all students. We don't quite have a cap on that in the same way that we do for STEAM. STEAM has different materials that are required for it, so we do cap that at 280, but for our theater program, we can go as many students as want to participate, we welcome. They can take on roles in the cast, in the choreography, in the stage design, in the lighting, and all of the different components that go into theater production.
Thank
you. Okay. And then her second question is, what is the proposed spending per student, and how does that compare to prior years?
Okay, thank you. Ms. O'Neill is ready for that question?
That one's kind of difficult to answer, because it depends on how you want to look at it. I'm assuming they mean the entire budget. So when we look at the New York State fiscal supplement that we're required to post on our website, along with the budget documents, we have, let me just pull it up. I just had it up, give me one moment, I apologize. So in the 21-22 school year, when we remove the administrative costs, we spend $15,688.20 per student for instruction. If we have the overall the overall comparison, including the administration and everything, we're spending $25,691. The statewide average was $25,870. When we look at the latest fiscal financial transparency report that came out, our district spends $30,483 per student as compared to the statewide average of $26,857 and the county average of $29,186. When we remove the administrative costs, we're spending $17,841.89 per student.
Okay, thank you. How does it compare to previous years? Do you have that information?
I just gave 2 years.
Just 2 years, you gave the past 2 years?
I gave 2 years, last year and this year.
Okay, all right.
Yes, and last year's is posted online underneath the budget page, and we will be updating our budget page tomorrow with the financial transparency report that's provided by the state, as well as our detailed budget and all the other required documents.
Okay, thank you. Third question from Ms. Lomax is, do we have the student achievement data available from grades 6th through 8th?
Ms. Barnett will respond to that.
Thank you, Dr. Chase and Vice President Ewing. So this year, we implemented a new literacy program in our middle school called HMH into Literature. So we're currently in year 1 of implementation. Realistically, we're only about 6 months into that implementation, which means that the common formative assessments that we're using this year within HMH don't quite mirror the assessments that we may have had in past. So it would not necessarily be appropriate to compare prior years to this year in the same way that we did for the elementary level. However, we plan to continue our partnership in utilization of HMH into literature long term, so we look forward to being able to share that in the coming academic years, as well as looking at our New York State assessment data to look at growth for our middle school, as well as for our 3 through 5 grade levels in our district. The New York State data we share generally at the August or September board meeting, depending on when it is released from the state out of what's called embargo. But we do anticipate seeing some small, modest gains in our year 1 of implementation at the middle school. And Mr. Gallivan is thrilled to work collaboratively with Ms. Jagan and be able to share that as soon as we have it available for the community.
Do we have the prior year's achievement data?
I can pull up the New York State achievement scores from the middle school, but it'll take me about 5 minutes or so.
Okay, so could you have that available for, not for this meeting, but for the next meetings?
Absolutely.
Thank you. And then the last question is, if Proposal 2 passes, will the community have a say in what projects are approved?
So the district has priorities. We do have facility priorities, but we are always open and willing to listen to community concerns and community input. We will always be collaborative.
Okay. Mr. McGivens?
Thank you, Mr. Vice President. My digression has to do with, I see that we have press coverage here, and I'd just like to ask if a message could be conveyed to the editor of the paper asking why he's suppressing opinions of members of the public when all we seek to do is to inform, participate, engage, or even challenge the discord in the marketplace of ideas. Isn't that what the press is supposed to do? Isn't that what it's all about? As long as such opinions are not seditious or libelous.
You're asking me
That's
a question as to?
Yes, it is for our press member here.
For the press member then? Okay,
Yes,
so this is not directed at the board?
No, sir.
Okay.
I hope that
Or the administration.
information will be received, and I have I have those articles that have been curtailed or not published, been doing this since 1996. What's the problem now?
So
Thank
I
you.
don't know if the member of the press that's here has the ability to
No, just a
answer that
convey.
question.
I understand. I'm not seeking an answer now.
And I think that it would be, the appropriate manner would be to consult or confer with the editor of that paper.
Been done 3 times, no answer.
Okay.
Total disrespect. Thank you.
Okay, you're welcome. Okay, are there any other questions from anyone in the public regarding this presentation? Well, please be advised that the budget hearing will take place on May 6th. And during that time, we will send out mailers to the homes, as well as be advertised in all the appropriate locations, so that the public will be fully informed as to when the budget hearing will be there. At that time, the public will also have an opportunity to speak on the budget, have any questions addressed and answered at that time as well. So just, although this was a budget presentation, it is not the last one, and it's not the public's last opportunity to comment on the budget. So please come May 6th, and we look forward to seeing each and every one of you. Please bring a friend, a few friends, neighbors, let them know as well. Thank you. At this time, I believe we are adjourned. Thank you for coming out this evening, and have a great night. Also remember that you're gonna, any questions that you have in the interim, after reviewing the budget, you can go to, email them to budget@westburyschools.org, and your questions will be addressed. I'll put in a queue, and will be also put on, reflected on the website. Is that correct? Yes, sir. Yes. Thank you, and have a great evening, everyone.